Helen Mino Faukner, welcome back to Chamonix ahead of your debut at UTMB.
Thanks, Dylan. Yeah, I'm really excited.
And you're back after 2 CCCs, 13th in 2022 and third last year. One of the breakout performers, I think, of the 2023 UTMB. Maybe say a few words about that 2-year project at CCC and why you're stepping up to the 100-miler.
Yeah, I feel like at CCC last year, I had a really good result, but I actually kind of had a bad race.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm excited to get to try to run something longer and to get to run the whole loop.
Talk us through that, though. I mean, what was bad about it? Because remembering back to watching the live stream, God, you were running with a lot of courage and put yourself at near the front the whole day. I recall specifically you exiting the aid station at La Folie, and Corinne and I were just wow, she is moving. But then obviously you did fade back to third late in the race. So what specifically made it a bad race for you?
Yeah, me being that far ahead or in the field was also an accident. But I think a big thing was I woke up that morning and I don't think I got a single easy step. Sometimes you get races and you're easy breezy, beautiful. That was not my day. My toes were bleeding by mile 20. My heels were both complete blisters, and MK kept asking me at aid stations how are you feeling? And I just kept telling her it doesn't matter. And so I felt really bad from the beginning, but I also don't know necessarily if I had felt good, I would have had a better finish. So I'm still happy with how it went and how I was able to run, even though I felt really bad. And yeah, I lost a lot of time in the back half.
Yeah, that's an interesting lesson. Do you know who Gwen Jorgensen is? Mm-hmm. Olympic gold medalist in the triathlon for our viewers and listeners. And she has a saying that feelings don't equal performance. In other words, you can have a good day even when you're feeling bad, or have a good result even when you're feeling bad.
Yeah.
Does it feel like that's sort of the message from the 2023 CCC?
Yes. And also I don't think anyone saw this, but I got passed by fourth, at the last little cafe that you run through.
La Floria?
Yeah, La Floria. I got passed, and then I passed her back once it widens out onto the gravel road more, and we were on the bridge crossing the road at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
I was this is not how I wanted to end 100K.
It's funny because this is actually something I wanted to talk to you about, because you and I don't know each other super well, but I'm a huge fan of yours, and I just view you as being at the start of an amazing career. And I went on a run with your good friend MK and her husband Tommy in my neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about you a little bit. And what they said was that you don't like running fast, you don't like doing your intervals or whatever, but when you're a gamer, more or less, and you can turn it on.
Yeah.
Does that feel like an accurate characterization of your personality?
That feels pretty accurate, especially with races. I don't think I typically ever run as fast as I will during a race, outside of it. So yeah, I think that, I don't know, I feel like sometimes I'm just able to pull things out of thin air on race day.
Where do you think that comes from?
I'm really, really competitive.
Well, it's good to be a professional athlete when that's the case, isn't it? So you've been here for a little while. Tell us a little bit about, just what you've been up to, how long you've been here, how the travel specifically looks similar or different than how you've done it in the past 2 years.
Yeah, I got here July 22nd. So I've been here for almost 5 weeks, which has been really nice. That was something that my coach and I talked about, because originally I wanted to run Leadville. I didn't get in. And so then we pivoted to okay, I want UTMB to be my first 100. And one of the things we talked about is getting specific training, because it's hilly, but still so runnable here. And so that was part of it, is coming out early and being able to train. And the last 2 years, I've also had a job previously, and so I wasn't able to come out for that long. So yeah, I've just been running a lot.
So you're living the fully pro lifestyle now. Awesome. So you just mentioned, obviously this is your debut, and one of the things we talked about on our show yesterday was that, and this is sort of a reflection of maybe your inner drive and competitiveness, is UTMB is quite a stage to make your 100-mile debut. Why did you pick this? Is it simply because you didn't get into Leadville?
That was part of it. I think originally, like if I had gotten into Leadville, that is the race that I would have debuted at. But I think that when we were looking at some of the other races that we think that I could have run well at, or like really mountainous 100-milers, and I also didn't want to run alone for however many hours. And so I think it almost makes it like easier to have a really high level of competition. I mean, I guess I don't know yet, but I think it'll make it fun, and hopefully I'll be able to get the most out of myself instead of just running how I feel.
Man, what a loss for Leadville, man. It would have been so cool to see you race there, but obviously you're going to add such a fun element to race week. Does it feel intimidating in some ways to make a 100-mile debut at the world's biggest and most competitive 100-miler?
I don't think so. I think maybe the race itself like felt a little intimidating. I think maybe like running 100 miles is kind of intimidating. Like I think during this training block, I've gone back and forth of like, okay, I think I can do really well. And then like the next day it's like, I don't even know if I could run 100 miles. Yeah. And so I think like the distance is a little intimidating, or like the time on feet, because it's a lot longer than I've ever run, but I'm also excited to try because I do think it's something that I could be good at.
So right now, what is the longest race you've done, CCC, in terms of both time and distance?
I ran my first 100K, I ran in like 13:45. So that was my longest race.
So yeah, you're going 10 hours longer in all likelihood, or thereabouts. So Corinne, we were talking about you yesterday, and she said that like it feels like you're drawn to longer distances. And it made me remember that when you were on my podcast originally, you mentioned like this personal project you were thinking about doing that was like 200 plus miles or something like that. Does that feel accurate to you? Like, do you feel drawn to the long stuff? I mean, this is your 100-mile debut, but it sounds like maybe it's going to be the start of an exciting next chapter that may be focused in that direction.
Yeah, I think I've been drawn to it. Like, I think it was after like 2022, I ran the VK at Broken Arrow. And like immediately after that, I was like, sign me up for Tahoe 200. I never want to breathe that hard again. But I think it's also just like being patient and like waiting for like when is the right time, and like when I'm able to handle the training in my running career to be able to perform well. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I still love 50Ks. I'm excited to try something new, but I also know like I love running 50Ks if this doesn't work out. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, the good thing is that you've got many, many options and many, many years to use those options. And speaking of 50Ks, you've had two good ones this year at Formidable and at Desert Rats. Maybe say a few words about those two races. Obviously, I want to talk about Transvaal too, but say a few words about those races and maybe how they're setting you up for this weekend.
Yeah, I signed up for Formidable, I think like less than a week before it happened. I was like mostly Nordic skiing, but still running, but I like was excited to race a 50K. And so I did. And I guess I wasn't like in peak training or training specifically for it, but it was fun. I was by myself like most of the day, but it was good to, I guess, start my season there. And then Desert Rats was a little bit more of a focus. And both of those are like pretty outside of my comfort zone. They're like very fast, not hilly 50Ks. So I feel like that part was fun.
It's interesting to say that that's not your strength, because knowing that you come from sort of like the traditional track background, you feel more comfortable in the mountain terrain.
Yeah, I think so.
That's interesting. So Transvaal, it's a DNF there, and I never heard like what happened or whatever. So I'd love to hear a little bit about Transvaal, and also like you haven't raced since then, as far as I can tell, have you?
I guess I did.
Oh, you could?
I did.
Well, what I was going to ask you is like, coming into UTMB after like a disappointing result can obviously impact confidence and mindset. So tell us what happened at Transvaal, how you are, what'd you learn? How are you processing it?
Yeah, I was kind of dealing with like an Achilles injury, and just like that day, it was really bad. I feel like I had been kind of dealing with it, but it was like, oh, races line up with good days, so I'm able to like get away with it. And then at Transvaal Canyon, like going out that fast up a like pretty steep hill and then running in a bunch of sand, like at first it was like normal, like, okay, my Achilles really hurts, but I was like, I can run 45 miles like this, that's fine. And then it started like turning into nerve pain that like went all the way up my leg into my low back. And so then I couldn't really run. And I was walking at like mile 5 or 6. And so I was like, I didn't bring enough snacks to be out here for it's a really, really long walk. So yeah, that was like really sad. I was really disappointed. Like I had been there for almost 2 weeks before it, and that island is so cool. And like I really want to go back and like actually get to compete at that race, but I feel like you'll learn things when you got to.
So it was simply an injury thing, and that's now in the rearview mirror, and you're feeling fit, healthy, confident going in. So probably doesn't impact the mindset as much. You mentioned that you did race since then. What was that?
I ran a race in Switzerland called Glacier 3000.
And tell me about it. How did it go?
I got third. It went pretty bad, but that was also like I was in the middle of like really high volume training, and so I didn't really look at the course profile before I ran the race, and so I didn't really realize because it's a 26K with like almost 7,000 feet of gain. Except I didn't realize that like the first 9 miles are almost flat on a road, and then you just go straight uphill. And then you end like at the top of a glacier. So it was actually really, really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds like a cool race. Well, congratulations on another podium.
Thank you.
Final, like, I guess, dress rehearsal before UTMB, even if it's a very different style of race and a good chance to test the Achilles, I guess. You've done a practice lap around the mountain, right? You did with the HOKA team. Tell us about that. Obviously, you've done CCC twice, so you know a lot of it. Were there any learnings from doing the full loop?
Yeah, I guess I know with CCC, I think it's always just so surprising to me, like how there can be so much vert in a race, but how it's still so runnable. And I know it'll be like less runnable when I'm at the end or when I've already run like 45 miles. But I think that was like a big surprise. I didn't really realize, like, especially the first 30K, like how it's like almost a road race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because for our viewers here, so Hard Rock and UTMB have roughly the same elevation gain and loss. Hard Rock is at much higher altitude, but UTMB is like 7 miles longer, and it's still like 2 hours faster for the top men and women. So as I'm just sort of reinforcing your point of like the trails are actually very nice here, even though you are accumulating a ton of vert.
Yeah, I feel like there's like 3 or 4 like kind of technical sections, and then other than that, it's like pretty smooth.
Yeah. So how has training been going?
Good. Yeah, I think I feel a lot better now that I'm tapering. Yeah. I feel like normally I don't have a 2-week taper. Normally I'm 4 or 5 days before the race. And so I was really, really tired, but I feel a lot better now.
Anything interesting that you've been focusing on in training? Any specific emphasis that you and your coach have been dialing in to prepare you for this big debut?
I think just like more back-to-back long runs. Instead of doing like just back-to-back long runs, I've been doing like back-to-back-to-back long runs. And so I feel like that helped a lot. It's just like running even when you're really tired.
Yeah. Awesome. So you mentioned that being sort of near the front very early at CCC last year was a bit of an accident. And this is your 100-mile debut, as we've said many times here. And I'm just personally curious about like how that impacts your strategy, right? You're a competitor, 100-mile debut, potentially the most competitive women's 100-miler ever. I think this is something we were talking about on our show yesterday. I'd love to hear how you're thinking about things strategically, if you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah. So I haven't talked to Rick yet. So this could completely go out the window because sometimes I've been like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And he's like, absolutely not. But I think I want to run like a smart but risky race. Like, I don't want to finish the race and still feel like I could have run faster. And that's kind of how I felt after CCC. And I've had like a few races where I feel like I really like got everything out of myself. And so I'm hoping for that. But I guess like, yeah, not losing contact, but also like realizing it is 100 miles. So maybe I don't have to go out so fast for so long. Maybe just like the first mile is like a 6-minute mile.
Smart but risky.
Yeah.
I think that is the formula for success in the sport these days. And unfortunately, it's a lot easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
It's not easy to find that middle ground between smart and risky.
You know, by the time you find out, it's a little too late.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to watch you race this week. And I think, you being in the UTMB field is just one of the things that I'm most excited to just sort of like see how it goes. And obviously, it could go one of two different ways. And, obviously there's going to be a lot of people rooting for you. I've been ending all these interviews with the same question, which is just who is going to be crewing for you? Why that person? And what has that person meant to you in your career?
Yeah. So Rick Floyd, my coach, is crewing me. It was why. Why Rick? Because he knows more about how I'm going to do than I think I do. Yeah. I feel like I'm not really a spreadsheet person, but I was like, should I make one? Like, it's 100 miles. But then I was like, wait, everything that I put in the spreadsheet is just going to be what Rick told me anyways, and I'm going to give it back to him. So that doesn't make that much sense.
You do the spreadsheet.
Yeah, and even like MK crewed me last year and was like still texting Rick, like, what do I tell her? Yeah. So I feel like he just knows me the best and like knows how I race and knows what I'm capable of. And so that's why I chose Rick. And I feel like a lot of the reason why I've had success in running is because of Rick. I don't think that I would be doing as well without him.
Rad. Shout out, Rick. Well, Helen Mino Faukner. Does anybody call you HMF?
No.
Okay. Well, Helen Mino Faukner.
Sorry.
Well, if you're open to nicknames, this is something I'm always thinking about because I'm a big, dumb, stupid person. But appreciate you coming in and best of luck in your UTMB debut this weekend.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me.